With all of New Jersey news focused on pensions, transportation, unpaid sick leave, and dwindling revenues, few New Jerseyans are aware that 2 of our regional public broadcasting TV licenses have been sold. And on the national scene, there's a fight happening over keeping your internet free. Stay tuned, it's all coming up.
And it really goes to prove that if you don't measure something, nothing will be done about it.
And we have to make New Jersey's business climate more attractive for entrepreneurs.
We are Wonder Women. Like, look at all these women and what they've done and what they've tried. And even if they didn't succeed, they gave it a shot.
I don't think it's fair to put a $4 or $5 billion price tag on middle-class New Jerseyans.
We've got a great lifestyle here, and I don't want to see it ruined because politicians can't manage our finances properly.
Hello everyone, and thank you for watching today. I'm Lisa Allen, and this is As a Matter of Fact. As you know, in New Jersey, we're going through budget season, and there are many competing financial priorities for our state. While it was reported that we have a $436 million revenue shortfall, New Jersey was paid $332 million from the sale of TV licenses at a national public auction. There have been many discussions around who should get that $332 million, whether it goes into the general fund to pay pensions or cover other budget shortfalls. But my guest today says since the money came from the sale of the public airwaves, your airwaves, and was meant to keep the public informed, it should go into securing and growing journalism in New Jersey, especially with New Jersey experiencing a local news crisis. My guest is Mike Rispoli, Director of News Voices New Jersey, a project of the national media advocacy group Free Press. Mike runs campaigns to increase community engagement between newsrooms and New Jersey communities. He and his team are working tirelessly to find new ways to create, support, and secure local journalism and free speech. Thank you for joining me today, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so we have a lot to talk about today.
Yes.
But before we dive into some of the bigger issues, I really want to talk about who are you, what work have you been doing, what's a brief background of your experience, and tell me about this company, Free Press.
Sure. So I grew up in New Jersey. I grew up along the Jersey Shore in Monmouth County, and I'm a former reporter. I worked for Gannett newspapers covering State House politics about a decade ago, and then I moved on and worked for the Star-Ledger for a little bit of time as well. And then it was after that, as I was working at newspapers, I kind of got this urge to want to do more. I care a lot about journalism, but I also, I wanted to get into the advocacy side of stuff. So I worked for a few different human rights organizations on freedom of expression, on privacy rights, and most recently, I started working for Free Press as their journalism campaign director, and I helped start a project here in New Jersey called News Voices, which is a way to help bring together communities and newsrooms to help build relationships, to repair trust, to build a community around supporting local journalism.
That's interesting. And it's interesting that you said, I find that journalism and advocacy sometimes feel like they go hand in hand. Is that true, or is there a separation?
Sure. So I think that the best journalism is when it advocates for the public's interest, not on one particular issue. That's usually left to the activists, right? But journalism, when it's its best, is when it's advocating for the communities that it serves, holding the powerful accountable, speaking truth to power. And keeping people informed, and so that individuals who either read the newspaper or listen on radio or watch TV, they can take the information that they learn and feel empowered to make decisions and to be more civically engaged.
Right. Well, and I had mentioned that New Jersey is in a crisis, so to speak. I look around, even in our local, the newspapers are disappearing, online forums are coming. We have something called the Alternative Press TAP, which is great. They seem to be growing, but there is a need for true journalism, for televisions, and that's why you and I are speaking, because I caught wind of a very it's a big issue and it's complicated, so I
Yes.
want to keep it simple.
Sure.
But basically what happened was New Jersey owned 4 TV licenses. They just sold off 2 of them, and
correct.
it's called the Spectrum sale. I'm actually going to read this because it's pretty complicated.
Sure.
So it's called the Spectrum sale, and the Spectrum, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, relates to the TV licenses being sold, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so New Jersey has sold 2 of their 4 regional public broadcasting television licenses for $332 million in a nationwide auction of broadcast television spectrum for wireless networks providers. Now, New Jersey was one of the first states to experiment in public television, and in 1968, the act was known as the New Jersey Public Broadcasting Authority, established and dedicated statewide funds for public television and radio in New Jersey. So fast forward now,
Right.
50 years later, we are losing our licenses, and we don't know where this money is going to go. So first, now it's already happened. What's going to happen with that money, and why should we care?
Sure. So I'm glad that you mentioned why New Jersey started public media in the first place. Back in the 1960s, it was a pretty radical idea that this idea of public media, but it was really important. It was the government recognizing that we needed to deliver quality information to people, and information that is of the public interest. And so, for decades, New Jersey operated the New Jersey Network. And back in 2010, the state government decided to sell off the New Jersey Network. And so even though it sold off NJN, which eventually became NJTV, it held on to these public media licenses. And so when they just recently sold off 2 of those, that means that $332 million is coming back into the state. It's no secret that New Jersey has some budget issues, right? There are some financial problems in the state. But we think that because these licenses were in place to better inform people, that the money that comes from their sale should go back towards that. And one of the challenges New Jersey is facing now is that there's really no local coverage anymore. New Jersey has a history of feeling like the kid brother to New York and Philadelphia media markets, which has always created a situation where we've heavily relied on local programming like this, or local community newspapers. But with the downturn in print media, it's left a lot of the state uncovered. 2,000 journalists have been laid off since 2008. Dozens of newsrooms have closed down, which has created these huge news deserts around the state where communities are getting no coverage whatsoever. So now we have an opportunity where the state's getting hundreds of millions of dollars. We think that that money that's coming in from the sale of 20th century media should be used to fund the future of media in New Jersey. And so one of the ideas that we have is this idea of the New Jersey Civic Information Consortium, where the state's universities would operate essentially a journalism and news and community information fund. And they would grant out money on a yearly basis to startups, community-based startups that are focused on delivering news and information to local communities. So we can test out new business models, new ways of delivering information to people, whether it's through print or through digital technology, or expanding civic technology so that people can find out more about their local government, or expanding media literacy programs. We think that because of the amount of money that's coming in, it's really important that this money doesn't just go toward legacy media or go toward one media outlet, but that it actually gets spread out across the state so all the communities of New Jersey can benefit.
Right. Governor Kane actually came out yesterday saying that that money should go back into NJTV.
Yes.
Do you know if he wants it to go all into NJTV or just be spread out for what media is going to look like for the future?
Sure. Well, I mean, I certainly can't speak for Governor Kane, but I am familiar with that op-ed. And so I do think that the spirit of his op-ed is correct, which is, this money came in from the sale of public media. NJTV is public media, and so we do think that it would be appropriate for them to benefit from the sale of this. And so whether that's NJTV getting a portion of that $332 million or working with us more closely on the consortium, because this fund could absolutely benefit public media like NJTV. But I think what you're going to see going forward is that a lot of really good ideas are going to be put out into the public, and we're going to see how lawmakers and the public respond. And the reason why I think it's really important to engage the public on this issue is, like you said, these are the public's airwaves that were sold off. And so we think that we should hear from people about how this money is best spent. So Free Press has been holding forums around the state asking that question. If you had $100 million to better inform your community, what would you do with it? How would you deliver information? What types of projects would you want to see? And we're seeing really interesting and fascinating responses from people from that.
What are those responses?
Yeah, I mean, for instance, we held an event in Camden about a month ago. I think it's no secret. Camden is depicted in the media in a very certain way, right? Violence, drugs, whatever it may be. But it's also depicted on the other side of it as being revitalized. But we know that the truth probably is not just those two narratives. There's a lot of other things. It's a complex community. And so people wanted to see that money be used to create something that's based in their community, talking about their daily lives. And that's not something that's unique to Camden. That's across the board. A lot of communities feel like their daily realities aren't being depicted accurately in the media. Right. And so I think the expansion of local news, local community-based newspapers or media outlets are really one of the best ways to use this money, because that way people feel like the media that is being produced about them is actually rooted in their community and more accurately reflects what they see.
Right. You know, what are solutions? You've talked about working with universities as part of that consortium. I think it's Montclair State, Rowan University, NJIT, and
yes.
the fourth.
And Rutgers.
And Rutgers.
Yes.
But, you know, I feel as though when you look at the future, media is changing totally. So we may not have the traditional media, you know, brick and mortars.
Right.
Are there ways to be really creative, and are there innovative thoughts of how it's going to look?
Sure.
That maybe we wouldn't have thought of today?
Sure. I think one of the reasons why we were interested in working with the state's universities are because that's where some of the best minds are in the state. You know, they focus on research and innovation. But we think it's really important, though, that the money from the fund isn't caught up in university, ivory tower bureaucracy, right? That it actually goes out into communities. And so the way that we've set this idea up is that they would be required to partner with a local group or a local media outlet or technology company on this project, so that we make sure that this money is being spent in the community to benefit local communities. I'll give you one example of an idea that I think is really innovative that I could have never imagined a few years ago. There's this really great media outlet called Jersey Shore Hurricane News. They're based in Monmouth and Ocean County. They cover breaking news, emergency, weather emergencies, hurricanes, things like that. That was started as a Facebook group where a local guy, his name's Justin Osceola, he just said, I want to get more information about what's going on with this hurricane that's about to hit. I think this was back Hurricane Irene. And so he just started aggregating information, but then started reaching out to people in the different communities. What are you seeing? Can you send me a video? Can you send me a picture? And it became this two-way media outlet where people shared information about what was going on, and he helped verify it and then broadcast it out to a huge group of people. A news outlet based out of a Facebook group was inconceivable years ago. And so it's hard for me to imagine what types of ideas this fund would create, because you can't even imagine some of the things like that now. And that's what's most exciting to me, is that recognizing that people get their information from a variety of different sources, and every community is different. And so how do we make sure that the money that would go into this fund is adequately used in the community, so that it's not just for legacy media, it's for creating these new ideas that make sure that it's going to places where people actually seek out, that they actually, what's most beneficial for that community. I don't have the best answer for that, but I imagine that the people that we talk to in all the different communities do.
Yeah, and a Facebook, you know, Facebook Live is free.
Yeah.
So you don't have to invest anything in that.
No.
The question is how do you maintain the integrity and the ethics within
Right.
journalism. So,
Right.
I mean, I feel like there's lots of different places that you can read the news today, but some of them, everybody talks about fake news and everything else, but when you talk about established journalism, you want to get good information.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, while I think all those tools are really important, Twitter, Facebook Live, in terms of allowing for people to broadcast out what they're seeing, we do need professionals who are doing good journalism in the field, and we also need to figure out a way to have them get paid, right? One of the biggest concerns that I hear from communities is that they don't even know who their local reporter is, or they had a contact for a local reporter, but that person since left or got laid off. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you would have a dozen reporters covering a county, and now you have like one person covering an entire county. How can they possibly serve the needs of those people in all those different communities when you have one reporter? Right. And so I think one of the things we want to see with this fund is not just really good ideas of delivering information, but also testing out different sustainable business models so that professional media outlets can figure out new ways to make money, but hopefully in a way that isn't based on ads or eyeballs or shares or clickbait, but instead based on how is your journalism benefiting the public interest?
Yeah. Well, I want to get real because it is New Jersey.
Yes.
And it's $332 million.
Yeah.
Everybody knows our pensions are broke. We have unpaid sick leave that I think it's $2 billion in the hole. Mm-hmm. We have a revenue shortfall. How are you going to get a hold of that money? Because everybody's going to have their hand out.
Right. Well, the way that it works right now, so that $332 million is going into the general fund, which means that lawmakers can use that money for whatever they want.
Right.
And like you said, this is a lot of money. It's hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And so we know that lawmakers are going to be scrambling to use this money probably for anything but journalism.
Right.
Right. Why would they fund an industry that helps hold them accountable? Yeah. But I do think that there are a lot of lawmakers who do agree with this idea that the future of our communities is deeply intertwined with the future of journalism in New Jersey. Our communities can't thrive if we don't have adequate information about what's going on in our neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And so I think that while a lot of this money may go to different endeavors, mm-hmm. I'm also confident that a significant portion of this money will go back towards the future of media in New Jersey. And so we've been actively working with lawmakers to get legislation introduced to create the Civic Information Consortium. And we are hopeful that within the next couple of weeks, you're actually going to see that bill introduced. And then once it's in committees and that the public has a bill number and they're aware of what's going on, we're hoping to also create some grassroots organization in all these different communities that we're working in to tell their lawmakers, we care about the future of media of New Jersey and we think that this is an idea that you should support.
Right. Can you go out publicly and tell us who you're working with? Which lawmakers? I mean, I don't know if they... No,
we're talking to a variety of lawmakers as well as gubernatorial candidates as well about this idea. And the responses from them really range, but I do think all of them agree that this idea has merit, it has value. I think some lawmakers are saying this is an absolute appropriate use of the money, and other lawmakers say, we're facing budget deficits, or there's a lot of programs that are being underfunded, and this money could be going towards a lot of other good things. And so I think what you're going to see, like I said, is that once the bill is introduced, then the public debate will really begin around this, which is why we're trying to get out in front of it to talk to people about why the future of media in New Jersey is crucial to the future of New Jerseyans in general. Mm-hmm. So I hopefully more to come soon on that.
I'm going to press a little bit because I understand why we need news and I mm-hmm. understand why we need lots of perspectives, but why can't we push this out to the private business? Mm-hmm. I think it was in 2010 mm-hmm. or 2011 that Governor Christie cut the funding mm-hmm. from $30 million to $10 million. We're still getting coverage, mm-hmm. but why doesn't public business find this there's money to be made, why
right.
don't they invest in it?
Sure. So there's a couple of reasons. One is that the difference between public media and commercial media, is that public media has an obligation to serve the public, right? It is your money that goes towards creating this media, and historically, commercial media, while producing great investigations, really good journalism, has also, written sensationalist headlines, right? They don't adequately serve a lot of communities of color, for instance. Their obligation is to make money as opposed to serve the public. And this is the fourth estate that we're talking about, right? This isn't just any old industry. This is an industry that allows for people to be civically engaged. And so, which is why we think that it's important to continually fund public media, but also fund public interest media, which is really what this consortium is all about. In New Jersey, we've seen media mergers over the past, 10, 15 years. Gannett newspapers, for instance, my former employer, they've bought up a lot of newspapers in New Jersey, and this is not a comment on the great journalists and editors that work there, but it's a corporation, and their interest is to serve their shareholders and their bottom line, and so they cut newsroom staff, they shrink the size of the newspaper. They closed down some newspapers. We saw this up in Bergen County when Gannett took over North Jersey Media Group. And so while commercial media is very important, we've also seen a lot of instances where they have not made decisions that benefited the public necessarily.
Right. I think that's a challenge across the board in terms of companies merging. It's a challenge, right? Our economy is a challenge. And I also think that industries are merging. So, you have journalism, but it's kind of part of this like public relations, media advertising. There's places where they've opened coffee shops and there's news media being filtered out of those coffee shops. So it's shifted so much. And let's talk a little bit about the big mergers because, I hate to see big industries, pharma, Wall Street, journalism, they've all merged to be more nimble, but the bigger you get, the less nimble you are, right? So it's kind of a catch-22. They get bigger, less jobs, but it also kind of opens up the market for these littler guys to come in, or women, little companies to come in and be more nimble and give better service.
Right.
So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think an important thing to keep in mind is that media is not just like any old industry. Like I mentioned before, it's something that's really intertwined with our communities in terms of keeping them informed and learning about local art exhibits or the local business that's opening up or what's going on at the city council. And so when media mergers occur, it does not necessarily benefit consumers. It doesn't necessarily benefit people like you and I or your viewers. It benefits people within those corporations. And so we think that the more local media there are, the more voices that are coming out of communities, the more that benefits people. And the same is true for telecom industries or broadband providers. The more that they merge and consolidate, this doesn't benefit consumers necessarily. It actually hurts them in the long run. People have fewer choices, and those mergers occur to take out a competitor, right? They don't occur to better deliver service necessarily. And so we think that one of the best ways to combat this is to find ways to support local industry, support local media, and to advocate for policies that are consumer friendly and not necessarily padding the pockets of large corporations like Comcast or AT&T or Verizon.
Yeah, I mean, even Hometown, we're a little TV station in the middle of Summit, and I think this is such a gem to have a local TV station, to be able to get our local politicians here, our council members, the Film Board of Ed. People have to know what's going on in their community, right? And so we're always struggling to look for the funding and how do we continue to reach out to other partners to keep us relevant? That conversation comes up constantly. How do you stay relevant in the world of journalism when things change so fast?
Right.
And no one watches TV. That's what we've been told.
I don't think that's true, but
Right.
but that is, I think something that's been really interesting in our work is that, you know, we've seen, and there have been studies that have shown what actually happens to communities when media disappears or is deficient. Corruption increases, fewer federal dollars go to those communities, fewer people run for public office, fewer people vote, fewer people volunteer. And so there's a correlation between the presence of media and how civically engaged people are. And so I think that one of the things that our work has tried to do is to take this future of journalism conversation out of the academic settings or the journalism conferences and actually bring it to communities and talk to them about why journalism is important to their community, but to also hear and really listen to their criticisms of local journalism and begin to collaborate with reporters, with community members, in really trying to reimagine the way that local journalism can be done and to benefit people.
Yeah, I mean, we have 7 interns coming in this summer. It's
Wow.
really exciting.
That's great.
The kids are invigorated by it.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to grow that and plant
Yeah.
those seeds,
Yeah.
right? So if this local TV station wasn't here, then those 7 kids, where are they going to do their internships?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I often think about that. Where I grew up, the Asbury Park Press was the paper that I got growing up, and I got excited about journalism reading the paper. I mean, it's kind of strange to think about a teenager reading the paper nowadays, but like, but
Not for me.
And I'm not even that old, but this is whatever 20 years ago or so, and that's how I got excited about journalism, and so. And that's why I came into this industry. And so it's great to hear that you're bringing in young people to this, because I think that when people are exposed to journalism, it's exciting, it's interesting, and you meet lots of good people, and you have interesting conversations, and you get to express yourself, and you get to have this platform. And so, but those opportunities are fewer when there's less media. And so we think that the more voices there are, the more ways that we can support local programming like this, it's beneficial not only for just the communities, but also the future of the industry.
Right. As we are winding down our time, I want to make sure that people know how they can participate. So once the bill is introduced, is that when we're going to hear from you next, or?
Hopefully. So one of the best ways for people to get information about the project is to go to newsvoices.org. We run a project here in New Jersey. We also run a project in North Carolina, so make sure you look at the information that's going on in New Jersey. And we really encourage people to get in touch with their local lawmakers, to call them and tell them that they care about the future of local media and that they want to see money from the sale of the state's TV licenses go back toward the future of media in New Jersey and to support the Civic Information Consortium. So if you go to newsvoices.org, you can get more information there. And we're also going to be holding town halls and events across the state over the next 2 months, engaging the public on this idea, getting their ideas about how this money could be best spent to better inform their communities. And so we're holding those all around the state, so you can get more information about an event near you at newsvoices.org.
Excellent. And then town halls around here, just everywhere?
Yeah, sure. So our first one's actually going to be on May 2nd down at Rowan University, but we're actually going to hold one in Montclair on May 16th. So hopefully some of your viewers in this area can come out on May 16th to the Montclair Public Library. It's going to be from 6 to 8 p.m.
Okay. And of course, we can always call our legislators.
Absolutely. And we really encourage people to get involved in this, because one of the things that we will see is lawmakers saying that people don't care about the future of journalism, but from everything that I'm seeing and hearing from individuals, people do care about it. So it's important that we make our voices heard and get in touch with your local representative and tell them that you want to see the Civic Information Consortium happen.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. We want to get the word out.
Yeah.
It's very important. Okay. So we have to wrap up. We're
Okay.
out of time already.
Wow.
I know, right? It goes fast,
It does
30
go
minutes.
fast, yeah.
All right, and thank you for joining us today. Thanks to our special guest, Mike Rispoli from News Voices. For more information on programs like this, please visit us at www.hometowntv.org or on YouTube at Hometown Television. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Hometown TV. I'm Lisa Allen. Thank you for watching.